What if fear wasn't your enemy, but your training ground? What if anxiety wasn't a signal to retreat, but a doorway to clarity and inner strength? Every day we carry invisible battles, doubts that whisper, "You're not ready," fears that paralyze progress, and thoughts that spiral out of control. But here's the truth. Stoic philosophy has taught for centuries. Fear only grows when you run from it, and anxiety left unchecked becomes the architect of a smaller life. This video is not about suppressing fear, it's about mastering it. Through the wisdom of the Stoics, we'll uncover how to face uncertainty without being shaken, how to respond instead of react, and how to walk toward what frightens you with purpose rather than panic. You'll learn 5 powerful principles backed by ancient wisdom and real stories of courage that will change how you relate to fear forever. So if you're tired of letting anxiety control the pace of your life, if you're ready to reclaim your inner stability, this message is for you. Stay with us, because what you'll discover may not only shift your mindset, but also reshape your life. And if this resonates with you, even just one sentence, then make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs it. Let's grow stronger, one Stoic truth at a time.
Number 1.
Understanding anxiety and vulnerability. To understand how to overcome fear and anxiety, we must begin not by resisting these emotions, but by studying them with clarity and courage. The Stoics never taught avoidance. They taught awareness. According to Epictetus, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. This foundational insight reveals something powerful. Fear is not embedded in the external world. It lives in our interpretation of it, and anxiety, it thrives in the space between what we imagine and what. Fear and anxiety are deeply human. They arise from our awareness of vulnerability, our knowledge that life can change in an instant, often without warning. But here's where Stoicism offers a different lens. The Stoics didn't see vulnerability as a defect. They saw it as the doorway to wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't tell us to escape fear. He told us to redirect it, to study it, to own it. Think about it clearly. If we were invincible, what need would there be for courage? If nothing could touch us, why would we ever need to practice discipline, judgment, or emotional strength? Our fragility gives life its meaning. The very fact that something matters enough to make us anxious, that's not weakness. That's value. Fear reminds us what we care about. It alerts us to areas where we must grow stronger. The Stoic path isn't about erasing fear. It's about listening to it, responding to it, growing. Take Eleanor Roosevelt, she famously said, "Do one thing every day that scares you." That wasn't a catchy slogan. It was her operating system. Raised in emotional pain and self-doubt, she didn't conquer fear overnight. She built a habit of meeting it head-on, and in doing so, she became one of the most respected and influential figures of her century. This is Stoicism in action. You don't wait until you're fearless. You move forward even while afraid. That is true strength. But let's go deeper. Why does anxiety feel so overwhelming? Because we try to outrun it, we distract ourselves, we rationalize it away. But every time we do, it gains strength in the shadows. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The mind can turn a possibility into a prison. One anxious thought spirals into 10, and suddenly we're stuck, reacting to ghosts. The Stoic response? Precision. We name our fear. We strip it of vagueness. What exactly are you afraid of? Failing? Being judged? Losing control? Once fear is specific, it becomes something we can work with, and that's when it begins to lose its edge. Here's where prohairesis, the Stoic concept of inner choice, becomes essential. The Stoics taught that while we cannot control external events, We always control our response to them. Viktor Frankl, echoing this truth, said, "The last of human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." And this isn't philosophy for comfort. It's a battle-tested principle. When you change how you see, you change how you suffer. Stoic resilience means taking back the lens. Instead of seeing fear as something to avoid, see it as an assignment. If something scares you, investigate it, prepare for it, train for it. This is not naive optimism. It's grounded fortitude. It's a refusal to be ruled by what-if scenarios. A powerful tool for this is evening journaling. At the end of each day, ask, "What made me anxious today?" Then ask, "Was my reaction in my control?" Over time, this daily discipline reveals patterns. You'll see where you gave your power away, and where you stood firm. It builds clarity, and clarity builds peace. Another tool is premeditatio malorum, negative visualization. It may sound dark, but it's not pessimism, it's preparation. Imagine what could go wrong, not to scare yourself, but to disarm fear through rehearsal. You begin to see that even worst-case scenarios rarely take your character from you. And if you can protect your character, you've protected the only thing that truly matters. Over time, your relationship with fear changes. You begin to notice. The things that once created panic now bring insight. You pause, you listen, and in that pause, there's power. Fear becomes a messenger, not a master. You'll also begin to spot where fear is disguising itself as control. When you obsess over outcomes, over other people's approval, over perfection, that's fear in costume. Stoicism invites you to let it go. Focus only on what is yours. Your judgment, your action, your attitude. Everything else is fog. Understanding anxiety through a Stoic lens means you stop asking, "How do I make this feeling go away?" and start asking, "What is this moment calling me to become?" That shift rewires everything, from avoidance to awareness, from paralysis to participation, from running to rising. So the next time anxiety knocks, don't slam the door. Don't turn up the noise to drown it out. Open the door with calm, invite it in, ask, "What are you here to show me?" And then listen, because fear isn't just something to survive. It's something to study, to honor, to outgrow. And when you do, you won't just overcome anxiety. You'll outgrow the version of yourself that once feared it.
Number 2.
The role of courage. Courage is often misunderstood. Many assume it means being fearless, as if the brave are those who feel nothing in the face of chaos. But the Stoics rejected that illusion. To them, courage was not the absence of fear. It was the presence of principle in the face of fear. It was not recklessness or bravado. It was reason held steady in storm. Epictetus put it plainly. It is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of death or pain. In other words, it's not the thing itself. It's our response to it. When fear rises, most people collapse into reaction. They imagine every outcome, chase safety, and abandon their values. But the Stoic stops, breathes, reflects, and then moves forward. Not because they're unafraid, but because they've trained their mind to obey what is right, not what is easy. Let's illustrate this with a man who lived this courage daily. Fred Rogers. Yes, Mr. Rogers. Behind the soft voice and gentle demeanor was unshakable moral courage. In an era defined by cynicism and speed, he insisted on slowness, kindness, and deep attention to human emotion. He faced critics, cultural pressure, and corporate dismissal of compassion as weakness. And yet he never wavered. He showed up, episode after episode, treating children not as future adults to be shaped, but as full people to be respected now. His courage wasn't loud, it was unmovable. That's courage. to stay grounded when everything around you tries to pull you into distraction or fear, to speak softly in a world addicted to shouting, to hold firm to your virtue when popularity and profit demand compromise. Now, according to the Stoics, there are two kinds of courage: naive courage and wise courage. Naive courage is impulsive. It doesn't see the risk, and therefore it doesn't value the act. Wise courage, on the other hand, is aware. It understands the stakes, sees the fear, and chooses to act anyway. Not recklessly, but deliberately. Marcus Aurelius modeled this constantly. He reminded himself daily, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. He governed not by force, but by alignment. Courage, then, isn't just about bold action. It's about consistent alignment. Doing what is right even when no one sees it, even when no one claps for it, even when your own mind tempts you to choose the easier path. Take another example, Oprah Winfrey. Her story is soaked in adversity, abuse, poverty, rejection. She wasn't supposed to rise, but she chose again and again to step into the unknown. She risked being seen. She spoke about trauma before it was profitable to do so. She created space for others to feel seen. That kind of courage, emotional exposure, radical honesty, purposeful persistence is exactly what Stoicism points to. And it's important to remember, courage doesn't require a stage. It's not about grand gestures. It happens in the quiet places, like when you decide to set a boundary in a toxic relationship, knowing it may cost you comfort, or when you speak the truth in a room full of silence, or when you admit you're afraid and choose to act with clarity anyway. The Stoics knew life would test us daily, Seneca once said. Sometimes even to live is an act of courage. Showing up, fully honestly, in a world that pulls us toward numbness and conformity is itself a bold act. Courage is not dramatic, it's disciplined. But how do we build it? First, we confront fear consciously. When something scares you, pause, observe, ask, is this fear protecting me or limiting me? If it's the latter, move toward it, not all at once, but gradually. The Stoics believed that the more often we step into fear, the weaker it becomes. Courage, like any virtue, grows through practice. Second, we prepare the mind for hardship. The Stoics rehearsed adversity, not to invite it, but to disarm it. They imagined loss, failure, rejection, not to scare themselves, but to become familiar with discomfort. As fear fell, readiness rose. Third, we anchor ourselves in something larger than fear, a purpose, a value, a truth. When your why is clear, fear loses leverage. The Stoics called this inner logos, a guiding reason that keeps you upright when emotions swirl. If your fear becomes louder than your purpose, your courage fades. But if your purpose speaks louder, your fear obeys. Finally, we give ourselves grace. The Stoic path is not about perfection, it's about returning. There will be days you hesitate, you'll retreat, you'll choose comfort. That's okay. The point is not to be fearless. The point is to remember who you are and return to what matters. So ask yourself, where in your life is fear setting the tempo? What have you delayed because anxiety whispered, not yet? Where have you betrayed your own integrity to stay comfortable? Bring those questions to the surface. Journal on them, reflect, and then act, even in the smallest way. Because courage doesn't wait for ideal timing. It doesn't need a crowd. It simply begins with a decision. This is mine to face. And when you act from that place, from stillness, not panic, you reclaim the one thing fear tries hardest to steal, your clarity. You don't just resist fear, you refine it, you turn it into fire.
Number 3.
Effective approaches to treating fear. The Stoics believed fear was not a curse, but a condition of consciousness. And like any condition, it can be trained understood, and refined. While fear may feel overwhelming, it is not immovable. It responds to strategy, to structure, to repeated exposure to what we once thought we couldn't face. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." That sentence is not poetic exaggeration. It is neuroscience before its time. The Stoics knew, centuries ago, what modern psychology confirms today. Our mind manufactures danger faster than reality delivers it, and to heal fear, we must stop feeding it with avoidance. Avoidance is what gives fear its power. When we turn away from what frightens us, we reinforce the story that we are helpless, fragile, incapable. That story settles into the nervous system and becomes the body's truth. So the Stoics taught a different path. Don't run, don't dramatize. Break fear into something smaller, study it, stand near it, and eventually walk through it. This approach echoes what modern therapists call exposure therapy, the practice of gradually and voluntarily confronting what scares you, not to shock your system, but to rewire it. What's brilliant is that the Stoics practiced this without the scientific vocabulary. They simply understood that by engaging with discomfort in small doses, one builds an immune system against panic. Take Bethany Hamilton. At 13, she lost her arm to a shark while surfing. Many expected her to disappear from the waves forever. But instead of withdrawing, she returned to the ocean. Not all at once, but step by step. First walking near the beach, then paddling, then falling, and eventually competing again. Her courage wasn't reckless. It was gradual, grounded, composed. She respected the fear, but didn't let it decide her story. That's the Stoic model. Fear is not conquered in one moment. It is retrained over many. You face it in layers, and you do so with structure. The first structure is specificity. Stoics taught that vagueness feeds anxiety. If you say, "I'm just afraid," your fear becomes a shadow. But if you say, "I fear this conversation," or "I fear losing control during this moment," then the fear becomes something you can work with. Defined problems invite defined responses. So ask yourself, what exactly are you afraid of? Not generally, precisely. Write it down, name it, because clarity is power. When fear remains a fog, it rules you. When you bring it into language, it shrinks. The second structure is rehearsal. The Stoics practice premeditatio malorum, negative visualization, not to be morbid, but to become emotionally prepared. They imagine the worst-case scenario, not to dwell, but to train. What would I do if this happened? How would I respond? What part of that is under my control? These questions create mental readiness, and readiness weakens fear. The third is incremental exposure. Don't aim to eliminate fear. Aim to expand your tolerance for it. Start with what's slightly uncomfortable. Stretch yourself there. Then rest, reflect, try again. The Stoics didn't expect you to walk into fire on day one, but they did expect you to walk one step closer each time. Courage is not built in a single leap. It is forged in 1,000 steady steps. Now, another key to treating fear is separating what is true from what is imagined. When a fear arises, pause and ask, is this a fact or is this a forecast? Your mind may scream, everyone will judge me, or I'll fail completely. But those are forecasts, stories, not facts. Stoicism trains us to slow down and return to what is real. As Marcus Aurelius said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. This is the essence of cognitive sovereignty. It means you can reclaim authorship over your inner world. The event doesn't own you. Your interpretation does. And if you can change that interpretation, even slightly, you change your entire emotional response. Let's look at another example. Susan Cain, author of Quiet. For years, she feared public speaking. She described herself as the shyest person in any room, but instead of avoiding the spotlight forever, she began a quiet exposure. First small meetings, then classrooms, then small talks. And eventually TED stages. Millions have now heard her voice, not because she waited for fear to vanish, but because she walked toward it slowly and steadily. Her power was not performance. It was presence. That's the Stoic way. We don't chase fear away. We disarm it through conscious action, through repetition, through alignment, and we never let it grow in silence. To close this section, ask yourself, what are you not doing because fear is whispering too much? What skill, habit, or dream have you sidelined because the sensation of fear made you question your worth? Bring it forward, write it down, then break it into parts. Begin small, reflect often, and remember, the goal is not fearlessness, it's fluency. The more fluent you become with fear, the more you can hold it, speak to it, move through it, the less power it has to interrupt your path. You were not made to run from fear, you were made to reframe it. And the more you do, the more fear becomes not a blockade, but a bridge.
Number 4.
The benefits of accepting challenges. To the average mind, challenge feels like an interruption, something to avoid, delay, or resent. But to the Stoic, challenge is not an obstacle to peace. It's the process by which peace is earned. Comfort doesn't make you strong, struggle does. Not because it's pleasant, but because it reveals what comfort hides. Your depth, your discipline, your potential. Epictetus said, difficulties are things that show a person what they are. What you do when life doesn't go your way, that is the real test. Most people wait for life to be easy before they act. The Stoic acts first, knowing that it's in hardship that character is forged. Challenge, when accepted with awareness, changes you, and not just mentally, it changes you biologically. When you lean into difficulty voluntarily, whether it's a tough conversation, a personal boundary, or physical training, your body releases dopamine, not as a reward after success, but as fuel for effort. You become sharper, calmer, more grounded. This is not just philosophy. This is physiology, meeting intention. It's your nervous system learning, I can handle this. And each time you face something hard, your body and mind both remember, you are stronger than you think. Take Terry Fox, diagnosed with cancer at 18, lost his leg, but instead of giving up, he ran. He began the Marathon of Hope, attempting to run across Canada with a prosthetic limb to raise funds for cancer research. He didn't finish, but the impact he made, 143 days over 3,000 miles, became a story of human strength. He didn't ask for ease. He answered pain with purpose. That is what Stoics do. They don't seek suffering, but when it comes, they don't run, they rise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacle is not there to stop you, it's there to train you. So how do we live this? Start by reframing discomfort. When something difficult shows up, don't resist it. Say to yourself, this is the place I grow. That single phrase takes you from reactive to reflective. It breaks the illusion that struggle is punishment. It is preparation. It is sculpting your character with chisel and flame. The more often you step into that heat, the less terrifying it becomes. Eventually, discomfort becomes a friend, not because it feels good, but because it reminds you that you're alive, engaged, and evolving. Then take on small challenges every day. You don't need grand gestures. Say what needs to be said. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you started. Walk instead of drive. Listen instead of argue. Discipline over chaos. Courage is not built in heroic moments. It's built in daily ones. These small repetitions build internal gravity. They anchor you. Next, reflect. Don't just move on after a difficult moment. Ask, what did I learn? Where did I flinch? Where did I stay strong? The Stoics wrote every night to measure themselves, not to be perfect, but to be aware. Pain only teaches when we listen. Silence at the end of the day lets you harvest the strength from everything you endured without reacting. There's also a physical benefit. Modern science calls it hormesis. The idea that small, deliberate doses of stress make you stronger. Cold exposure, exercise, fasting, even emotional discomfort, if chosen consciously, has this effect. The Stoics didn't have lab results, but they had wisdom. They knew that challenge, approached with discipline, transforms the nervous system. Seneca practiced poverty. Cato walked barefoot. These were not theatrical gestures. They were rehearsals for hardship, a way to stay ready in a world full of uncertainty. You can see this in people like David Goggins. Though not a Stoic in name, he embodies the Stoic ethic. He chooses the hard path daily, not for ego, but for mastery. He reminds us that strength doesn't come from wishing things were easier. It comes from becoming someone who can carry more. But here's the truth. You don't need to become Goggins. You don't need to chase extremes. You just need to meet your own resistance. One small challenge at a time, one uncomfortable truth, one decision you don't delay. That's enough to grow. That's enough to evolve. And as you grow, something else happens. You become useful. Your pain, once processed, becomes presence. Others feel it. You don't have to speak it. You've been through something, and now you carry a calm that says, I've stood in the fire, and I'm still here. That steadiness is rare, and it's magnetic. Not because it demands attention, but because it no longer seeks it. That is why Stoics lean into challenge, not to impress anyone, not to punish themselves, but to prepare their soul, to become more composed, more effective, more awake. So when the next challenge shows up, and it will, don't just ask, how do I get past this? Ask instead, who can I become because of this? That's the Stoic frame, not survival, but transformation. Don't waste the test, rise to it. You weren't made for safety, you were made for strength, and strength is not given, it's built slowly, privately, repeatedly, and the bricks are made of challenge. So don't wait for ease, step into effort. You're not being tested, you're being invited to grow, to refine, and to rise. Because in the end, the hard thing is not in your way, it is the way.
Number 5.
Practical application in daily life. Knowledge is powerless without practice. The Stoics weren't interested in sounding wise. They wanted to live wisely. Their philosophy wasn't meant for libraries. It was meant for living rooms, marketplaces, and moments of quiet choice. If you don't apply the principles daily, fear and anxiety will always outrun your insight. What you understand intellectually must be practiced physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Otherwise, fear remains your master. So how do we take all of this and bring it into the real world? Start with self-observation, not judgment, not analysis, just awareness. Begin noticing your reactions in real time. When you feel anxious, ask, what am I afraid of losing right now? Often, fear comes from imagined losses, status, approval, safety, comfort. The Stoics called this projection. Your mind leaps into a future it cannot control, and you become hostage to what hasn't even happened. The cure? Come back to presence. You can't fight what isn't here, and most of your fears never will be, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That means your power lies not in controlling outcomes, but in controlling the way you meet them. So meet them with preparation. One of the most useful Stoic tools is negative visualization. Each morning, take a few moments to imagine what could go wrong, not to become pessimistic, but to train your nervous system, Seneca wrote. He robs present ills of their power who has already rehearsed their coming. By visualizing setbacks before they happen, you make them smaller. You disarm them. The fear of the unknown shrinks once you choose to look it in the face. This leads directly to courage. Each day, do one thing that makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be big. Say no, speak up, go without something, push yourself physically. The goal is not to conquer the world. It's to reclaim your mind. These micro moments of defiance, when repeated, create new identity, one where fear becomes a signal to move forward, not back. Now layer this with another Stoic foundation, the dichotomy of control. Whenever anxiety shows up, divide the situation into two parts, what you can control and what you can't. Epictetus was firm on this. Our peace depends on focusing only on what's ours, your thoughts, your judgments, your actions. These are yours, what others say, do, or think. These are not. Let's say you're facing a job interview or a difficult conversation. You can't control the other person's reaction, but you can control how you prepare. You can control your posture, your words, your breath, and you can meet whatever comes not with desperation, but with steadiness. This mindset doesn't just reduce fear, it replaces fear with a sense of agency. You stop waiting to feel ready and start acting ready. It also helps to ritualize your practice. Start your day with a Stoic check-in. Before the noise of the world floods your head, ask yourself, what might challenge me today? List 3 things that might go wrong. Then tell yourself, if that happens, I will respond with clarity. You don't need the perfect plan, you just need a plan for your response. This simple act creates emotional margin, a space between what hits you and how you respond. End your day the same way. Reflect honestly. Where did I act from fear? Where did I choose courage? Don't shame yourself. Just notice. Each evening is a mirror, and over time, the mirror becomes your guide. And in between those rituals, stay close to nature. Not just the outdoors, but your own nature. The Stoics believed we are fragments of the divine whole, what they called the logos. When you align your choices with reason, with virtue, with the good of the whole, you return to yourself. Anxiety thrives in disconnection. But when you remember you are part of something vast, something intelligent, something stable, you stop trying to control every detail. You start learning to flow. This isn't abstract. You can see it in figures like Mr. Rogers. He wasn't loud, he wasn't dramatic, but every day he practiced presence. He created emotional safety by mastering his own state. He journaled, he swam, he prayed. He built a life of small habits that trained his emotions before he stepped into the world. And because of that, people around him felt safe too. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. You don't need to eliminate fear completely. You only need to relate to fear differently. Begin noticing it without obeying it. Begin choosing your response instead of reacting. Begin returning, again and again, to the quiet place inside you that no one else can touch. Because ultimately, fear isn't your enemy. Mismanagement of fear is. The Stoic path is not about being fearless. It's about being faithful. Faithful to your reason, to your training, to the highest part of you that remains calm no matter how loud the world becomes. So begin today. Observe, visualize, challenge yourself. Separate what's yours from what's not. Reflect and align. You are not your fear. You are the one who observes it. And once you remember that, you're free. Fear doesn't disappear by accident. It dissolves when you face it with clarity, with discipline, and with purpose. That's the Stoic way, not to avoid fear, but to walk through it with your eyes open, to stop waiting for permission to live boldly, to stop rehearsing defeat in your mind. You've learned today how to observe your anxiety, how to reframe challenge, how to act with courage even when the fear is still there. So now the choice is yours. You can go back to overthinking, to delay, to living small, or you can step forward, one clear step at a time, not perfectly, not fearlessly, but intentionally. Start now, practice daily, and with each act of courage, you'll remember who you are and who you were never meant to be ruled by. If this helped you reclaim even 1 inch of your inner freedom, like this video and subscribe. We walk this path together, and this is only the beginning.